A very good morning to one and all. I'm very honored to be here amongst the elite panel that's here. I'd like to especially mention the Director of IMH, Dr. Purna Chandrika, who is here, senior colleagues, other professionals, students and friends. My job today is like that of an opening batsman. I need to sort of put the conference in perspective on what we're trying to do and sort of prime you to the rich feast that awaits you. Now, the topic I have is on evidence-based intervention. How many of you like statistics? How many of you hate statistics? You know, evidence-based in itself is very boring, very dry. But let's just try to understand what we need to take on. Maybe next slide. This is how I would like to keep going. This is how I'd like to keep, presenting today. An introduction. Essentially, if I look at myself as a clinician, and I have a child in front of me, all of you have case vignette with you, right? So we thought it would be very useful for you to read through the case vignette and then listen to these presentations that will follow and see how will you respond to the child who comes to you. Okay? So when I was in training, there was a particular way I was taught to look at evidence and all that. But as I've grown older, as I started graying and balding, I realized there's more shades to life than you first understand. Yeah. Briefly, just to recap what autism spectrum disorder is we've got a combination of problems, mainly around social emotional reciprocity and repetitive behavior. And depending on the age, how it presents, it changes. So social emotional reciprocity, non-verbal communication, impaired relationship, and on the other side, the one that distinguishes autism spectrum disorder from somebody who's got a social communication disorder. The stereotypes, the excessive adherence to routine, restricted interest, and the sensory problems that have recently been included in DSM. Now, one of the key challenges, I think, for the field of autism. So all of us are here trying to understand what is the evidence, how do we translate it into practice. And one of the key things when we're looking at evidence is outcome. How do we know something works? We say this works because the outcome is better. So this is where I think autism is somewhat different from the other medical issues. Let's consider cough as a medical problem. Somebody presents with cough. Next slide, madam. They listen to the chest. They do some blood tests, sometimes with or without listening to the chest. I'm not going to get into controversies. And then, these are the clear outcomes. Can people tell me what the outcomes are here? Someone? Anybody who can read this? Yeah? The infection is treated, so there's no cough, and that shows the sensitivity slide. So very clear outcomes. But mind you, these are unidimensional outcomes. One dimensional. Now let's see what happens in ASD. The parent suspects that there's a problem, goes to the pediatrician. The pediatrician may either doubt or think it's an ASD and refer to the therapist. And I'm talking about how it works in Chennai. Other people away from Chennai, outside of Chennai, and you could tell us if it works differently. So generally this happens. A lot of the times from the the person goes to the therapist. There may or may not be a comprehensive assessment for a lot of practical reasons. I think there's both good and bad. And then the therapist is of different orientation, different disciplines, may have received the child directly from the pediatrician or sometimes directly. There are walk-ins to therapists also. Now when it comes to diagnosis, it's not always straightforward. Especially when you have higher functioning, younger children, it becomes a little complicated. I hear by the time somebody comes to me for an opinion, they've gone to different people. They've gone to a pediatrician who thought, oh, that looks like hyperactivity because I was trying to vaccinate the child, but the child won't fit in place. And they refer the child to an occupational therapist, and he's picked up that the child has got sensory issues, so he's told the parent that his child has got sensory issues, not just ADHD. And he says, oh, by the way, he's not talking for 6 months, he's been doing therapy, maybe there's more, let's send him to the speech therapist. The speech therapist says, does a reel and says the child has mixed expressive language delay. They come to me I do something else and I say, I think this is ASD, and the parent goes, what? Can you not guys, agree on what you are seeing? And this is simply because we all develop eyes based on our training, our learnings, and so it can sometimes be difficult. The other issue is, autism as an entity is not homogeneous, it's heterogeneous, it's of different dimensions. And it's very important, I think, for us to shift from the categorical diagnostic medical model to a more dimensional developmental one. And I'm sure the models here that the experts will be discussing will really bring to forth the importance of moving and shifting. Because, it can take a lot to diagnose ASD and we feel, yes, I diagnosed ASD, so what? What is the next step? Well, it depends on the child. Then we might as well do that right at the beginning. So one of the key things that when we are listening to the evidence in ASD is looking and listening dimensionally on what is happening for this child at this moment. And you can see this person is arguing at 6 and that person is saying 9. I think this is what happens between disciplines sometimes. We are looking at it from different perspectives. And we will come back next segment. And we in Prashant we try to use the ESTM informed approach, and ESTM in the early start Denver model, it looks at the different domains, and I'm sure the other models also have a very dimensional approach on the different aspects of speech, socialization, play, joint attention, sensory. The two advantages of this is you can first target the problem at the level rather than just deliver something like, this is like a diabetes treatment, this is for breast cancer, this is for AIDS. There isn't one like that. Not anymore, even for the other ones that I mentioned. That is one. The second thing, when you're evaluating, you can go back and say, okay, the language is improved, but, the eye contact has not improved, or we have a child and we're just reviewing, the eye contact is better, but the language is not improving, we're wondering whether other prompts or other strategies are used, and so on and so forth. So that is important. And we are not thinking that one intervention might fix all these domains. So we may have to pick and choose different modalities depending on the child. And again, paying attention to these might be very useful. So just continuing the medical model, it's infection, the antibiotics, the outcome we're looking at is negative on test. Hypertension, antihypertensives, we can look at the blood pressure. But ASD, what are we going to do? Do you think all of us in this room will agree what we will do for a child with ASD? I suppose that is too much of an ask because our discipline is. Can we even agree that there is one evidence which will say there is one thing that we will do for all children with ASD? Can we all know what we will do as outcome measure for all children with ASD? Because these are the things that we need to clarify in our minds as we spend more time through the day listening to the different models, learning and processing it. Anyway. So the next 5 minutes, I'm just going to think about different levels of evidence in a very practical way, not the statistical way, not the theoretical way, very practical way. So the debate now is evidence or experience. Now, I sort of grew up and I have my friends here. Just thinking of randomized control trials, double-blind randomized control trials, and each metabolism, because it's very fashionable to think of evidence, and so on. I think still there's a lot of merit, but there are some problems in different levels of evidence, and there are some advantages in lower levels of evidence as well. So how do we sort of marry and come to terms with the good and the bad, as we do in our own marriages, without trying to divulge more of my personal life? And this is, for all of us, just a quick recap of, our own evidence from expert opinion, case series, case control, cohort, randomized control. This is the, the holy grail of how we look at evidence. So let's say, what is the question? What is the way to treat ASD? What are the outcome measures? So where are you going to keep looking for the answers? In this triangle, where do you want to go and look? Yeah? Meta-analysis, you want to look at expert opinion. Okay. So it's at the top, so a lot of people want to go to the meta-analysis. And we look at, should we discard the others? Should we just go? Do we really need this? We don't know. It's never straight. The answer is never straight. Not that easy. So experience. How many of us vote for experience? Is important? Yeah? All of us think experience is important. experience is very important. Because if you just take evidence, it really can be tricky sometimes. I'll come to that. But we also have to have the balance of making sure we understand the limitations of evidence or experience. That is, there is a high risk of that. I can feel like my thing works or my idea works. So it's very important that we guard against that. We'll go to the next one. And so this is a build-up of experience, really. Clinical case series is build-up of it. So when you look at the triangle, it comes lower down the order. But this is what really sets the journey of autism. So there is no substitute to very careful, clinical, objective observation. It has a role in categorization of problems. It has a role in understanding issues. And it is this clinical wisdom that somebody carries in the research domain. So I just realized that research has to be sharpened, objective, clinical experience. Otherwise, you get an armchair expert who really doesn't connect or offer solutions to the real world. And there are also models, when models are developed, Madam has published extensively about her work. It's published in case series initially before the proof of concept RCT happens. So it's very important to do that. The next step is control trial. The difference between a clinical series and a control trial, what is the main difference? You have a control. What is the advantage? So if we have a group of children, you offer an intervention for ASD and they get better. So you feel like the intervention is good. The only question we have to answer is, these are children who are growing and their skills are likely to keep improving anyway. How much of that is because the child just grew up? Some adults never grow up for that matter. But children grow up for sure. And so is it that happened naturally or did something else that the intervention did? So that's the question that the control trial is able to answer. But this is something my supervisor was trying to drum into me and I was very resistant when we were doing one of the trials. And I can very comfortably say that once you have a control arm, the validity of your outcome improves substantially. Suddenly journals are interested in what you're saying. But the issue, so you can compare the known variables. Now, the holy grail is randomized controlled trials, even more than the meta-analysis because, I'll come to that in a moment. In randomized controlled trials, what happens is, there are a lot of variables we haven't understood today. So we know autism, we know the perinatal risk factors, the pregnancy-related risk factors, the genetic risk factors, if we know and we control them. But let's be honest, how much do we know in this universe? What we know is far less than what we don't know. So the randomized control trial, the understanding is if you have a sufficiently large number and you simply randomize it, everything will fall equally because it's random. As long as you have a bigger sample set. And if you stratify for the ones that you really want to make sure are balanced and then you get closer to a comparable group. And this is why a randomized controlled trial is given so much importance, provided it is blind. I don't know what I'm delivering, and he doesn't know what he's studying. Is that possible in ASD? So this is one practical problem. I will always know what I'm delivering. I better know what I'm delivering. If not, I'm not delivering what I'm delivering, right? And the other issue is it's very hard to blind because we're not going to ask the child whether the child improves. We'll also ask the parent. So that's one. To account for that, people are now doing blind outcome measures. So the outcome is done, assessment is done by somebody who doesn't know. And this is how you build. So I think we can realize how every type and design has a certain merit and a certain reason why it's there in that design. So then we become a little more moderate and not just RCT, terrorists. And then the meta-analysis. The meta-analysis gives us an ability to combine the number from different studies. So our strength of concluding or confidence gets better. But there are some caveats in this. Because randomized controlled trials are done in different places. They use different outcome measures. We were publishing a meta-analysis on, we've actually published one on mindfulness in children. And when we were doing that, we actually looked at it. People have done different mindfulness interventions and combined them all. And then they looked at the scale they use. One scale goes from 0 to 10. Another goes from, it can go from 20 to 40. And these scales are slightly measuring different things. And when you combine them as numbers, you have to account for these differences. Without understanding some of this, a lot of us fashionably say, oh, I read a meta-analysis, it says this and it says that. When we look at what they're actually compared, we felt that's not the right way to compare. So the other problem with meta-analysis, it gives a false sense of security. Suddenly if a meta-analysis says something, a lot of us are willing to believe, and even journal editors, sometimes they don't know the methodology. Sometimes they trust the reviews, and there is a possibility of getting it wrong. So a large-scale RCT is always better in terms of getting, the efficacy. But a meta-analysis will give you a broader sense, provided, at our level, we're not expecting you all to just scrutinize and say what meta-analysis is good. You go to Cochrane. Because Cochrane is a neutral, authentic, free website, it's neutral and not-for-profit, so that's where you go. Or you go to a reputed journal. You don't just read any meta-analysis, is the message there. Now, what I have tried to answer is, what is the intervention that I can offer the child in front of me? So I've gone to a meta-analysis by Takibana, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, in 2017. And guess what I find? I find 32 randomized controlled trials. And a good way to do this, another advantage of doing a meta-analysis is, or reading a suddenly I have access to 32 randomized controlled trials in their references. And I can quickly read through the one that matters. When I was searching for RCTs on my own, it took me forever. Without having a systematic search engine and a search strategy. You may not land up having all of them. That is one. And then I looked into it. I'm just going to, for want of time, just mention one type of analysis and just point out some of the tricks that we need to be aware of. So they have 32 studies. In analysis 1, they do include only 14 studies. And they divide the number of studies they have into 3 different types. I think this classification, I'm sure the experts can comment as well, seems reasonable. They say, we divided them into either behavioral interventions like the ABA based alone, or social communication focused like the Jaspers or the ESTM. The ESTM is complex, it includes both domains, and the multimodal like each type of intervention. I think that's a reasonable question. But if you look at the models themselves, they're not equal. They're comparable in terms of their theoretical orientation, but the style of delivery, the number of sessions, the mode could all be different. And this is why when you unpack, you realize what seems true is not actually that true. It's like watching a movie. Everything seems perfect, but when you just slow it down, it doesn't really work. So when you unpack, you see they're actually very different interventions packed together, and then they compare. Now let's look at what the results of the first one say. The other thing I'm trying to point out is, look at the outcome measures. They look at the primary outcome measure as the 4 symptoms of autism. But they did not stop with that, because clearly that is not enough. They are looking at secondary outcomes like developmental quotient, expressive language, receptive language, reciprocity of social interaction, and imitation, symbolic play, and other things. I just ran out of it just so I can put them on the previous slide. So you can see that they have looked at the dimension because they're very clear that one particular intervention might improve a set of dimensions. And depending on the child who is in front of you, you might have to be aware of the limitation of the model you have. And very briefly, what I'm trying to highlight here is a summary of that. They found that the autism general symptoms in itself was not different, neither was the developmental quotient, nor was the expressive language, but they found, this is between the interventions. So all interventions were doing equally well, except in terms of reciprocity of social interactions towards others, in which case, the relationally based, the social communication based models were doing better. Now, the reason I said this is analysis 1 is, they did a very systematic analysis. They just included high quality studies, and they got this answer. And they include the low quality studies, everything becomes better for the intervention. So you can see how the quality of intervention also matters. And I think when I looked into their methodology of meta-analysis, at least as far as I can understand, the quality is very good. You're allowed to do the sensitivity analysis. By sensitivity analysis, what they're doing is, They're not telling you this is good or bad. They're saying when we include what we consider high quality studies, we get this. When we include, not so good quality studies, also we get this. It's up to you to decide what to do. So they are just having so this is how you do a risk of bias table. And if you get all green, it means very high quality. Red is obviously bad. If you go through it, it will give you a sense of the quality. And you can again see the mixed nature of the bias or the risk. And you get something like this to indicate, how the quality of the study is informed. So you may get a result saying, oh, the intervention works great, but the quality of studies is very poor. So your confidence on that result is not very good. Yeah. And this, I was just going to highlight, we're very proud. This is a paper published in our first issue of the Tamil Nadu official journal of Tamil Nadu Psychiatric Association. And here we got Madam Sondin's, work and a lot of Indian work showing that there's a lot of work happening in India that we tend to not see and look at. It's a good paper to read. It talks about Ma'am Sondin model. It talks about the home program. So that shows the Sondin one. And I think there's one from Kerala, the home-based one. If you can look at it. And then you can see this randomized controlled trial from JIGMA. It's a 5-week parent-mediated training on top of sensory integration. And I think it's just published or in the process of publishing that particular paper. So you can see that actually relevant literature in India. And it's very important that we're aware of it. So when I'm looking to answer the question, I'm looking at what the meta-analysis is saying. It says, okay, this is great, but do I have that model? Do I have Jaspers here? No. So I pass it aside and I look at what's happening in India, a review on Indian, and then I can shortlist the ones that seem interesting to me. And the other thing is, once you've looked at the evidence, how do you communicate the evidence? When this one is how it used to be done. Mr. A, your wife has breast cancer, she needs to have it operated and take medication. This is what the doctors of yesteryears maybe told, that's what they probably communicated. I feel like I can make it even worse. Someone we knew was going to die. And I was asked as a house surgeon not to tell him, but go and tell his family that we think he'll die in 20 hours. I don't know how we did that, but we felt like we wanted to protect that man, whatever. I feel very different about it today. But today what we think we would do is, Mrs. B, I'm sorry to inform that you have stage 3 cancer of the breast. It means it's advanced, but actually we're lucky we caught it when we did. At your stage, the evidence tells the chance of survival is about 25%, but the majority of the 25% are in your age range. So we think you might have a better program. See how the truth is not one limb. It is not a certainty. Because we have some information. We are trying to use experience and interpret it. So experience is always going to be necessary to do and interpret research. So always, back yourself to be critical of whatever is being presented and not just blindly follow whatever the meta-analysis might say. Just translating that into ASD, I'm just thinking, what might that look like for an ASD child? This is what I thought might be relevant. You say, this S presents with features of ASD and has the following developmental gaps, comorbidities, associated risk factors, and response to treatment if you already started, and family situation. We think the targets for the next 3 months are the following, and you give them a list of what the targets are, and that's what we try to do in our clinic. We give them a target, and we try to communicate with the pediatrician and everybody, and so that they can follow that. And then, based on the child's risk factors, the presentation, which includes the comorbidity, development, speech, and response to treatment, I tell them, I'll be better able to predict, knowing that I'm not always right. This is, I think, as close as we can get. Now, what are the take-home points? So I think how do we apply? I think we need to tailor evidence-based models to suit the development needs of the child. I think that's where I think we're particularly lucky today to have experts who are actually doing that. Actually doing things that work and showing us the outcomes from that. So I think that I'm really looking forward to learning from them all. And deliver it in a mode that is feasible for the parent. I think this is very important in the Indian context, that we keep in mind the model of delivery. At the same time, we have to maintain fidelity. In a lot of professions, I think in India, we all need to give a rap on our knuckles. We're a little slack in maintaining standards. We all do it our own way, right from our driving. I think it tells us everything about our country. Until we get the license, we somehow, even that we get through many ways. And we continue that in our driving class. I think it's something we have to do. We learn a model, we commit a model, we need to try and achieve fidelity to the extent that's useful for the class. Yeah? And also bear in mind what is available and make sure that we offer intensive long enough teaching. I think that's what the literature is saying. Irrespective of what model you might choose, it has to be intensive, about 20 hours a week, structured and long enough, a year or two. And that's something that our parents are in a rush to get to the main school. They want to learn ABCD and all that. We really have to get them. And the other thing I think we all have to sort of continue to hold as both clinicians and, I think we're all both the same. When we're looking at whether our child is improving, the child in front of us, that's the research. That's the research aspect of the clinical work. And when we go to research and we look at the clinical science, it's the clinical side of the research. I don't think we're completely separated, but it's like Indian marriage. There's always some battle. Some points to ponder. Just to keep in mind, absence of proof is not a proof of no effect. It's a psychiatric type of medicine, So made very simple, but I just wanted to say something. So simply because some of the Indian interventions may not have randomized controlled trials, we can't say they're not necessarily working. Yeah? And proven interventions may not work if the context is different or the fidelity is not different. It's very important if we learn a model, train a model, we deliver it the way it needs to be done. So I'm going to leave you with one story, and I think this is a joke I learned, from one of the memes. Which talks, which takes a dig at both experience and research. I'm not sure if people are able to read it from wherever you are. But I want to finish with a small story. I think I'm way over time. I'll finish in a minute. This is the story of somebody who walks into a village. A village where there is drought, and so everybody is suffering. Nobody wants to come out of the house because they don't have enough to share. This was a bubbly, lively village which is thriving. But today there's not enough food, there's not enough everything. So they don't want to come out because somebody will ask you something and you've got to share it. They don't have enough to share. So they're all staying at home. So I hope everybody's seeing the pot, and it's about the pot. And so there is a traveler who comes to this village and sees it completely desert. So he doesn't know what to do. So he sets up a pot and finds some rocks, some water, and gets the pot going. And then what he does, he starts singing, he starts dancing, and slowly somebody comes. And as people come, and he's just pouring water, he's got nothing else. And everybody, as they get into the song and into the song, they feel like contributing. So they put something in the pot, some ingredients from their house. And slowly this crowd grows into the whole village. And ultimately what happens is they cook a whole meal from the ingredients from the house. At the end of it, the message behind the story is AZ is very complex. We all come from different disciplines, and sometimes we feel very, identified with our discipline. Be it psychiatry or psychology or, OT or speech, whatever model we like. And so we're all guarded against, each other. So what we really need is all of us to come together and contribute to this work. And I think I really appreciate the nice team for offering us today a talk that we could all get into, contribute and learn from. Thank you so much for your